Since 2021, I've been doing two things on my channel with some degree of consistency. Those things are weekly album reviews and monthly-ish Let's Plays, and I quite enjoy doing them both. I like mucking in on the recording and editing process for the latter, I like expressing my passion more with the former, and for this episode of this Whenever the Hell Is Ready series, I'm going to be talking about my love of both music and gaming together. There are a lot of facets of game presentation that are very important, from the visuals to the game design to the genre, and what may be the hardest part to get right, the music. I won't talk much more about it because I'd rather save it for the actual points of the video, but when you think of particular games, there's a song that'll pop to your mind. I'll be naming those for the main part of the video, so stick around for them. Please, I work really hard on these. Speaking of, I'm going to give you the layout of the video right now, as I feel like it's what's going to flow the easiest. First I'll be covering early OSTs, which are original soundtracks for games that were made in-house. Usually the second part will be covering licensed soundtracks in games, which are games that use songs by bands or artists or what have you. And the last part will cover the match of gaming and music itself, as it'll cover games that use rhythm in some way. As to my personal experience with all of this, it's all pretty great stuff. There's a lot of early OSTs from games I played as a kid with songs that have wormed their way into my brain that just will not disappear. There's a lot of licensed songs that have introduced me to bands that I still love today, and even in the modern day there's more emphasis on the production value and feel of the music when it feels like it matters the most, so let's get to how much that means to me. This may come as a surprise to people who know me as an Xbox boyo, but I did actually have a Nintendo console as a kid. It was the 64th one, and I felt massively behind because I didn't play the first 63 consoles, and while it wasn't the first console I ever played, it is responsible for the first ever video game song to actually stand out to me, and you might have heard it, but in case you haven't, I'm betting that to anyone watching this in the background, you're just picturing Link riding a pony across a field as the sun rises behind them. And there are other parts that stick with me as well, most notably the battle theme at night, the Kokiri Forest theme, anything with Lon Lon Ranch was always fun too. It even comes down to smaller things like collecting key items from chests or the mood shifting completely as you travel to different areas, as well as between past and future Link. Now, the Nintendo 64 wasn't the first console I ever played, but it was some Sega thing, and surprisingly it wasn't the Mega Drive. But I can remember the first handheld console I played, which was a Game Boy of some sort, which is not the important part, as that would be the fact that my first game on said handheld was... well, I mean, I may as well just play a variant of it to see if you can get it. In a time when most handheld sounds were just 8-bit chippy blips, hearing that theme kinda blew my mind as a kid. It won't conjure an image as cool as a knightly hero riding horse to defeat a dark magic warlord pig, but hey, it's a lot of fun to play as an Italian plumber and jump on mushrooms and turtles while collecting coins, power-ups and stars. It's always the fucking stars. To round this off, I wanted to rattle through a few honourable mentions, notably Street Fighter 2, Donkey Kong Country and Final Fantasy 7. I love the hip-hop influence for Street Fighter, I love the jungle feel of DK, and all the more sweeping arrangements of Final Fantasy. But if there's one other one that's stuck in my head, it would have to involve a certain snarky spike ball with a tendency to steal foliage. Do you remember me? Yeah. No, not that one, the other one. FF7 fans, but I want to state that I love that soundtrack so much and it's held in high regard for a reason. But I did play Sonic first, so I felt as though I should represent how good the music is in those games, especially for the Sega releases. And like with Mario and LOZ soundtracks, I love that it changes up for specific situations, like getting power-ups, collecting emeralds, and the jingle when you get an extra life always gets me pumped. And if there are any OSTs I missed at all or that you think I should have mentioned from that era of gaming, feel free to let me know in the comments, I'd love to give a listen to them. As people may or may not, or definitely don't know, I run a video game pro wrestling federation, and I wouldn't be doing that if I didn't also love pro wrestling. I'd say I've been an on and off fan for about 2 decades and a more on fan since 2016, but if there's one thing that stuck with me, it was always the soundtracks. I played more sports games when I was younger, but it was pro wrestling games, skateboarding games, and racing games that all had an impact on most of my music taste today. Now, I'm not going to go through every game that's had a band I still listen to today, as that would take too long and I fear that this video is already quite long, but I will simply list the franchises that got me into a lot of those bands, most of whom I still listen to today, and of course we're going to be starting with the sacred sport of professional man-hugging. The first game I remember doing it the right way was the inaugural SmackDown vs. Raw, dropping all the way back in November 2004. That was 21 years ago. Wait, that was 21 years ago? It's the game that introduced me to my first songs by the likes of Zebrahead, Breaking Benjamin, Anthrax, and a band named Swallow Members. I hope they got some eyes for those. And for the 7-year span that SVR had, it would keep putting out great games which had belting soundtracks featuring tons of bands I still love today like Burn Halo, Project 86, 3 Days Grace, Skillet, and Nonpoint. I never really did lose my Edge Boy team persona, it turns out. And that did continue into the 2K franchise, but I only started playing those with the arrival of 2K17, and by then I knew about most of the artists I still listen to now, so I'm not really going to bother listing those. So let's take a different pro wrestling into the more lucrative sort of kind of sport of skateboarding. When you hear those intro notes of Superman by Goldfinger, you know you're in for a good time with the THPS games. And each intro to those games went hard with songs by established bands, so I'm going to talk about my history kickflipping to the beats of some sick skater music, boy. The games introduced me to the likes of Dead Kennedys, US Bombs, Primus, The Vandals, Swingin' Utters, Bouncing Souls, De La Soul, The Distillers, Hot Water Music, Goldfinger, Mike V and the Rats, Strike Anywhere, The Explosion, The Casualties, Alien Ant Farm, Gutsmouth, The Adolescents, and so many more that would pad this video to insane levels. Also, one fucking take, boy. Obviously neither of the soundtracks I mentioned would have that kick to them if the games didn't rule, which thankfully they usually did. That goes for the Burnout series and any NHL game I played by 2K, as well as the UFC games, especially the Undisputed ones. Seriously, there was so much goodness across all of those franchises that I do not have enough time to talk about all of them fully, but I'll recommend a few for you, so let's go with the soundtracks for Burnout 3 Takedown, SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, UFC Undisputed 2009, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 are some personal favourites of mine, so yeah, find those, they're pretty easy to find, dip in, enjoy some tunes. We're going to go back to OSTs for a little bit, specifically more modern day ones. Yes, Final Fantasy VII has a great soundtrack, but I prefer that Final Fantasy XV is just as good. It plays well on the FF formula, and I love that it remixes songs from older games during the car rides, and it doesn't feel cheap as it adds in more songs specifically for FFXV. And there's also the vaunted Souls-like genre, all of which have sweeping and atmospheric tracks that add something wonderful to their games. Tension. The games are challenging enough, but there's something about the right song for the right boss sending a river of sweat down your back. I also love how it's more specific to each game setting, with more of a Japanese influence on Sekiro, or a more dour tone for Bloodborne, and so on. There are games that have good OSTs for characters like Street Fighter VI. There is also Cult of the Lambs OST fitting the creepy cultist aesthetic to a capital T, and I want to thank Peachy Miku for introducing me to that OST, it's really good. But of course, if you're thinking about the modern soundtrack, you're probably thinking of Doom 2016. It not only revitalized the franchise as a whole, but holy hell, the music in those games goes so hard, and Mick Gordon put together an incredible legacy just through those songs. I don't have a ton else to add for Cult of the Lamb, as I've never played it, but from the few songs I spun and from what little I know of the game, yeah, the songs fit what it's going for and are actually quite unsettling. But I will list some character themes for Street Fighter VI I quite like, those being Ryu, Terry, Akuma, Marisa, DJ, and my favourite Injuries, but none of the themes in that game miss at all, including stage themes. They all just land so well. Now, I'm not going to say anything directly for this next bit, so I'm just going to go grab something really quick, and hopefully you'll be able to catch on. Just wait there a second. Okay? Stay. Have you figured it out? So like with what I went over with my previous segment where I went over wrestling games, skating games and sports games in general, I found out about a lot of bands from the Guitar Hero series. Obviously in those games there's older, more established bands, but through the series I found Senses Fail, Rise Against, Fall of Troy, In Flames, AFI and Wolfmother. There are more, but that's not what we're doing here. What we're talking about here is rhythm games, and what better way to exemplify that than with a plastic guitar with multicolored buttons and really cool stickers. I just noticed that that's like, it looks a bit weird as I'm recording because it looks like it's flipped around. But by the time you're seeing it, it'll look normal. And of course, I've played plenty of rhythm games or games that use music uniquely in some way. Jam Millennium was my first experience with it. Yep, I played that before I played Parappa the Rapper. And I've seen more games lately that match music with the gameplay on purpose, such as BPM Bullets Per Minute, Crypto the Necrodancer, Friday Night Funkin', Rhythm Heaven, and Beat Saber. I haven't played, well, any of those really, but they all look fun and I'd like to try them one day. My first full game to not traditionally be a rhythm game but to work music into its gameplay is 2022 release Metal Hellsinger. It has a Doom sort of vibe as you play a monster killer in hell with heavy as fuck music by modern metal bands blasting in the background. And it's so satisfying to use the fun weapons in time with the music. Each gunshot has more impact, each dodge has more fluidity, and each reload feels smoother when you time it to the beat. Couple that with a pretty good story, great art direction, and Troy Baker's killer performance as Paz, and you've got one hell of a time. But my second full length goes to a game that came out near the start of 2023. Hi-Fi Rush. It is a rhythm-style action game that goes for a Devil May Cry style spectacle hack and slash where you play as a massive dog named Chai. And this may just be one of my favourite games of all time. I love the soundtracks, both licensed and in-house. I love the art style, the humour, the characters, the voice acting, the story narrative, and of course, the gameplay. I always like the OST themes for the Devil May Cry games, and it's good to hit things into a beat in those, but in Hi-Fi Rush, you have to land it on beat to do more damage. You can time attacks, dodges, blocks, jumps, and the goddamn grappling hook in time to the beat to increase your performance. The bosses are challenging, but when you get it right, when you beat them with ease knowing you are in near perfect sync with the song playing, it's beautiful. Even if you're not an audible learner, you can just watch the world around you in the game. Everything moves to the beat, from Tri's finger snaps and foot taps to the super attacks to something as small as a light blinking or a piece of technology turning. It doesn't hold your hand, but it's everywhere around you, and if and when you get it just right, it feels amazing. Seriously, I cannot recommend Hi-Fi Rush enough, and I hope that we get a sequel now that Tang has been brought back from the dead, thank goodness for that. Normally I would end this with some sort of positive message and letting you know that it's not all bad, but I think I made my point pretty well so far in this video, so instead I'm going to do something different. I'm going to play a riff that a sadly departed friend of mine taught me. Part of the reason this video was delayed was because throughout March I just didn't really do a whole lot of writing or anything. And I wanted to get this video made at least then. Didn't work. And the sad thing that happened in March was a friend of mine passed away 10 years ago in March. His name was Luke, and he was sort of teaching me guitar. So I'm going to play a riff he taught me in honour of him. It's not going to sound good, but hopefully I do it justice, so hang on a sec. So there you go, that was my attempt at Trust by Megadeth, a riff that my friend told me it was going to be Cochise by Audioslave, but I tried practicing that one. And yeah, I haven't played guitar in such a bloody long time, I sort of lost my muscle memory for it, so you know, I went for the one by Trust, the one for Trust by Megadeth because that one's a lot easier. So yeah, hopefully it sounded nice and hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm not going to self-promote much because the entire point of doing this was to sort of like tribute a long-time friend of mine. And yeah. I hope you liked the video though, and I'll see you probably soon for another one of these. We'll see. But as always, thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye bye.